When I have that conversation with people about I can't be hypnotized, right? I say, I already hypnotized you. You just don't remember. Good icebreaker. I think I have to start with a Michael story. When I think we were in Bedford at that training, and we decided that we would do LBL bloopers. Right? Anybody remember? I think we have some from Bedford, don't we?
Yeah.
LBL bloopers are sort of things gone wrong during a session. And Michael started this off with a hilarious story I've never forgotten. And when he was winding down his practice, he worked in his home, in his living room. And he had a guy that had a lot of conscious interference. And he didn't do it often, I don't think, but he decided to do a rapid induction. Sort of the opposite of what he trained all of us to do. But I think if you're a good therapist, you have many, many tools in your toolbox. And you use the appropriate tool at the appropriate time with the appropriate person. He almost did that. This fellow was rather large, well over 6 feet tall. And Michael did the handshake induction. I've seen a few stage instances do it. I've never done it, especially after Michael's story. So Michael places his hand on the guy's shoulder and goes to shake it, and then during the shaking of the hand, you pull the arm and say, "Sweet!" And he did. And he crashed down on top of Michael. Michael's laying on the floor in his living room with this big guy on top of him. And then comes Peggy from the grocery store. Michael! I think it was really brave of Michael to tell that story. When I feel brave, I'll tell one of my own. Maybe tomorrow we'll go to that. Oh, I have to click this thing, right?
Oh, Paul.
He's okay, we're good, we're good.
Thank you.
How about that? Second time. Good so far. When I started, got a noise? Okay. When I started my practice of LBL in 2001, I guess it was by 2002, Michael started sending clients to me. We didn't have a referral system yet. We didn't have a functioning website yet. And so you could feel and see all of this energy here, retreating to the safety of the conscious mind. Breathe. Feel into your heart. What do you feel? Nothing. Put your hand there. What do you feel? I feel the warmth of my hand. Good. Physical sensation, not emotion yet, but one step towards feeling. We finally got heart open. I'll show how I do that. So you can do it if you don't already. And he cried about this breakup, about this, and then some of the childhood, really trauma, but sadness, some of the hurts, the wounds from childhood. And then we could pick up the methodology and continue. I said to myself, there's no way you can have a third failure. I'll do everything in my power. I don't care what it is. Sometimes I wish I had a sledgehammer. But then I guess that would be an NDE entry into Anyway, every tool you have, you use to get them there. Once they're there, I love that the guides, wise beings, loved ones do the work. Right? We help facilitate or navigate through that, but we need to use every skill we have on the way. And I think that one of the biggest challenges we have as an LBL therapist is getting past that mental mind. If you're doing some of the lighter work for suggestion-based therapy, or perhaps even parts therapy, You don't have to be that deep. So I really stopped talking so much about depth to my clients because there's a certain expectation. I know I'm not talking about that slide, but that's the next slide. There's so much expectation about what hypnosis is, what it should look or feel like, and it's very different than what most people expect it to be. So in my initial conversation with them, I talk about expanded consciousness. I learned hypnosis deeper and deeper and deeper, and even deeper. When Michael said an induction should be about 1 hour, I thought, well, how many times can I say deeper? I'm going to go to sleep before the planet goes into hypnosis. Yeah, so expanded consciousness. And I think it gives them a different expectation, right? We talk about allowing consciousness to expand beyond the limits of the mental mind. Isn't that what we're doing with hypnosis? It took me, I don't know, at least 10 or 15 years of practicing hypnosis to realize, no, we're not putting the person to sleep. We're not putting the mind to sleep. We're helping them expand their consciousness beyond the limits of the mental. Most schools of hypnosis teach suggestion-based therapy. You need those skills, but that's not what it's about. It's about getting out of that mental mind, that analytical mind, and moving into subconscious, as Pete said. And then from subconscious mind into superconscious, into soul mind. That's what we're doing. And you don't do that by saying deeper and deeper. You can include it, but if you rely solely on that, I don't think you're going to get there. So, some of the causes of conscious interference. Preconceptions. So last week I had 2 people come in for past life and life between life who had never read the books. Right? It doesn't happen very often, does it? Yeah, sweet. That's what I said, sweet. I love it. And the wow effect, when they're done, you can say, look, here it is, and here it is, and here it is in the book. But you don't have to deal with this big load of preconceptions. I mean, these guys come in expecting to see council beings with hats and medallions, and it's going to be like a Star Wars movie or something. And I think, as we heard in our discussions yesterday, there's less and less of this need for experiencing guides and council beings dressed up in Halloween costumes. I mean, I know my guide showed up my first session looking like Jim Carrey in The Mask. Right? Yeah. But like I tell clients before I take them in, how your guide appears to you and how your guide interacts with you is very, very significant. So why Jim Carrey? He's telling you, lighten up, dude. Relax. Enjoy life more, right? Yeah. Next time he came as a tree. Redwood tree. And he said, you love the redwoods. You live in the redwoods. They're sacred trees. Right? And so he could present that way. But anyway, preconceptions from the book. So I talked to the client about this before we ever start the hypnotic part of the session. What do they expect? Right? It's so common for someone, Michael wrote the books beautifully. I asked him about this. Well, Paul, Michael said, if I wrote the books like a session, they would be so boring, no one would ever buy them. They would never read them. Right? He said, I wrote them so that they would be engaging and interesting. You know from your recordings, how many blank pages would there be in a book for those pauses, right? So, as a result of that, people come in expecting the 3D IMAX movie. I should get those glasses. Maybe I could put them on and it'll go easier for them. So I think dealing with the expectations and the preconceptions, talk to them and tell them, look, this is a very personal, very individual session. Trust what comes. It may well be very different than the books, because you're very different. This is your session. Let it be what it is. So that the mental mind gets this idea, because what often happens, right, is this helpful mind is trying to make their session be like what they read in the books. I've had people go, well, you can sense their guide's presence, and the mind's already going, oh, we're going to go to council next, right? And they're sort of missing what's happening because of these preconceptions and expectations. So I think you really want to address those before you get going. Fear, right, is another reason. Like Pete was talking about anxiety. Fear is one reason the mental mind engages. It's trying to, and one of its big jobs, I believe, is to try to keep the person safe, right? It's observing things. I work in New York City. It's so noisy sometimes. And I'm telling you, client, imagine yourself in a place where you feel safe, calm, relaxed. You know? That's a trigger for most people. Now, some people don't hear that at all. They give the suggestion that those sounds can fade away or whatever. But the hypervigilant client, the client with trauma and fear, they're out there on 7th Avenue wondering what's happening. They're not in my chair. They're not in a relaxed mode. So there are a number of different techniques. Now, I'll show you at least one today that you can use for the fearful client, the one that's hypervigilant, the one whose consciousness and energy and awareness isn't there in the chair, but out there in the hallway or out there on the street. Of course, control issue, losing control. This one surprised me. We're used to it in a traditional sense, right? Hypnosis, I'll be out of control, I don't know what's going to happen. But I was really surprised when I started doing my own soul work and developing a method that I could go in through my heart, doorway to inner world, and connect with my own inner wisdom, my own soul. And my mind said, something bad might happen if you do that, right? That could be dangerous. Your whole life might fall apart. How ridiculous, right? But that's what my mind was telling me. My mind would love for me to believe that all I am is it. And as soon as I realize I'm more than my mind, it's a little scared. It takes some negotiation before you start the session, during your induction, and sometimes during the regression with that mind that's afraid of losing control. You have to convince it of the value of doing so. But it's learned from the time you're very young that it needs to engage to keep you safe, to keep it all together, to keep things functioning. And you're asking it to do something that it's not accustomed to doing. That's another one I use with them too. You have a really good mind. And it helps you in your day-to-day life to function really well. But what we're doing here today is beyond its capacity. It's just not designed to do this. It can really help you the most by stepping back. Not leaving the room, but stepping back. Enough that we can access, and I use this metaphor, this example of conscious, rational, analytical mind. Stepping back. One of the misconceptions of hypnosis is that mind should be gone. I tell them, no. We need your mind there. It has to understand and learn from what's happening here today. And there are even times during the session where we're going to need to talk with it. Michael called this duality of mind, that both minds are present. More than two, but anyway. The thing that the average client doesn't understand is that that should be present in some way. Not engaged, not directing or operating the session, but stepping back and learning from it. And why is it there? What's the other reason it's present in the room? Integrate, yeah. And it's a safeguard, right? So if something that's too traumatic, if there's something you're not ready to learn or know, it can step in and put the brakes on. That's so reassuring to someone. And so different than thinking, why do I hear the people outside of his room talking? My mind is still here and I'm not in hypnosis. No, your mind is there. It will have commentary as we go along, but we don't want it coming from that mind. Sometimes there is such emotional trauma that there is necessary protection that needs to be respected and that needs to be worked with before you go on and do a life between life session. Sometimes the people who need these sessions the most are the ones with the most trauma, and you have to resolve that first. I think the model we were shown this morning is a perfect model for this, and I think Michael was brilliant in how he developed his methodology so that we go through childhood. Yes, it's a stepping stone, but when you do the preliminary past life session with the person, I would say at least a third of the past life regression sessions that I do in preparation for LBL are not past life regression sessions. These are childhood sessions. These are womb sessions. Productive, powerful, healing, but not what they expected. So you absolutely have to talk about the preconceptions and the expectations about the session itself. If we find, you know, we all learned, I think Marilyn was saying this to me, we all learned to say in the induction and in the directions for going back, we're going to go back to 1 or 2 or 3 pleasant, enjoyable, or neutral childhood memories. I don't say that in my past life regression preparing for LBL. I want to know if there's something there earlier that's going to be need to be addressed. Because if you don't address it there and you have it the next day or the next week or the next month, because you just went past it or it didn't come up, you could be in trouble. Right? So use that preliminary session. I know some people do one-offs. I really don't recommend it. Yes, occasionally someone goes. I don't say, oh, no, you got to. But plan on that first session and get this stuff out of the way. FPS, I call it full plate syndrome. I had a woman who came in for past life regression, and she went to childhood, and she's opening the door of a closet, and the session stops. So we talk about that. She comes back the next week. We go again, opening the door, session stops. She really wanted past life. She came a third time. That's commitment. People say, oh, that's resistance. Absolutely not. I don't like that word. I included it in the title because I don't like it and I don't use it. It's not resistance. She paid the money. She made the appointment. She came. Here she is a third time. Yes, there's protection, but I don't think that's resistance. The mind stepping in going, no, I'm not ready to know what's in that closet. A good therapist will recognize that. Gently persistent is the word I use. You push, but you don't use a crowbar or dynamite, right? You push, and then you talk about it. So after the third attempt, we talked more about what was going on in her life. And then there were some private things she hadn't really wanted to talk about, not enough rapport, right? She said, well, I'm going through a divorce. My husband's moved out. We're selling the house. I have to move out. I'm looking for a new home. My son, he's had some issues, and he was actually just arrested. And he's in jail right now, right? And something else too, full plate syndrome. Her mind, and rightly so, said, you know what? I don't need to dig up trauma from childhood right now. I can't handle what's going on in my life already. So I said, when that resolves, if you want to work on some of that, or when you feel ready to, and when that resolves, come back. And she had a beautiful session. So be aware of full plate syndrome, and know that what you might perceive as a challenging analytical conscious mind is actually doing something very important for the person. And not to fight it, work with it. So, watching for conscious interference. How do you recognize it? And I did the interview for the Searchlight newsletter and for the filming here. This is such an important question, I think. I was asked, well, how do you know that the memories your client is telling you about is coming from their soul memory, from their soul mind? How do you know? It's not fabrication, it's not imagination, it's not fantasy, right? There's this whole amazing research now being done about consciousness. Anne is leading us into this world, right? And it's happening to us almost, isn't it? It just keeps coming our way. But how do you know? I think that it took me a long time as an LBL therapist, because I was so amazed at what was happening. I'm not doing research, I'm doing therapy. I'm getting them into that state, and I'm more amazed than they are. But how do I know? So I think that we need to have some tools, especially early on in the session, but also once they're in spirit. It isn't that the mind never interferes in spirit. You take care of that, you get them there, they're in the exact expanded state of consciousness they need for soul memory, and then something comes up about some aspect of the development of their soul that's taken them lifetimes to work on, and they're still not quite getting it. Guess what happens? Mental mind starts to try to understand and analyze and figure out what this is and what can be done, and feels even a bit uncomfortable with how they've behaved or the energy around the situation, and it will step in. And you need to recognize that before the mind starts making some nicer story or moving them on to some other place. So how do you recognize that? How do you watch for that? So I think Rifa, I want someone that has a very analytical mind. Can you come up? I was thinking hard head, but I didn't want to say that.
That would be easy to recognize.
Reef is an amazing combination of both that hard head and his big, beautiful, warm heart. Right? Yeah. And it doesn't take much to get the heart open, so I wasn't sure if I should use her. But she came and sat in the chair before we started, so I think she wanted to recline and have a little nap. It's a strenuous schedule, isn't it? Yeah. We'll have longer breaks today, and we did yesterday too.
Is there any reclining part?
Perfect, isn't it? Perfect. Who's in control here? Right? No, I just want it this way, so that you can see. Okay? If we put her back, it's hard for the camera and for you as well. Yeah. Can you put your bangs back a little bit? Joanne, do you have a pair of scissors? I just want to clip them a little. So sweet, Rifa. Isn't it amazing? That's another thing, the LBL hairdo, right? After 4 hours in the chair. Don't you love it? I want to take before and after pictures. That would be a book. Maybe that's another book we can do, Andy. So just close your eyes if you would. And take a breath or two. So you see how forehead is relatively smooth, chest rising, falling normally, kind of nice full breath. And then I want you to think about the afternoon schedule and what's happening at 1:30 this afternoon. And what's happening at 1:30?
We finish.
We finish. You see? You see the eyebrows up, forehead crinkle. So it's this forehead crinkle is one of the things you want to watch for, right? And then at 3:30, what is it we're going to do? See? Do you see? No breath. When we think, especially when we're challenged, we're not sure, you'll hear things like, I don't know, I'm not sure. So these are words to listen for, right? These are clues for conscious interference. But we have to be the private detective, right? I watch for the breathing. Oh, she's holding her breath. Is she anxious? Is she thinking? Is she wondering? What's going on here? We bumped into something, right? Just take another breath. You don't have to keep doing that. Yeah. And then think about the day that you had your 7th birthday and the people that came there. Now, some of you are very sensitive to energy, I believe. And there are 3 primary centers of consciousness in our bodies. The mind thinks, my mind thinks, my heart feels, and my soul knows. Right? So I talk to the client about this, these different levels of consciousness. I talk to the client about how the consciousness moves in the body. When the client's in deep trance, even though part of them is making the journey into spirit, some of them's here too. And you can learn to either watch or feel or sense the energy in the body as it moves. And as the session becomes more challenging, whether it's childhood or womb, past life, or even between life, you'll find that at times the energy moves up from the belly and the chest into the head. And that's when you have conscious interference. That's when the mind is either trying to help or it's interfering in some way to protect the person, or it's trying to figure out what's going on. And a simple suggestion of, that's right, just take another breath and bring your attention, your awareness, down into your chest and belly. And I want you to do that now, if you would. Yeah. And then watch, she can move it back down. So I get them back down in there like that, not down deeper, but down into their inner being, and then we'll continue. So I really want you to use whatever ability you have to see or feel or hear with your client, and watch for that energy movement, and help them keep it down in. Keep it down in that heart center and in that intuitive center of the belly. And they'll have a much more successful session. Right? Okay. Thank you.
I was planning to tell you about my 10th birthday.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Because I don't remember 7th.
Well, and that's right. I was trying to pick one that she wouldn't remember because I wanted her to try to think about that. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, but as she started to find that 10th birthday, did you see her start to kind of go into that altered state? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. Thank you. You know, one of the things that I teach in my basic hypnosis training, we talk about trance and what hypnotic trance is. We talk about the mind model, conscious mind, subconscious mind, superconscious mind. And again, I had very limited tools when I first began practicing. Counting and imagery, suggestions. You know what I realized years into it? If you can move a person from thinking into feeling, you have altered state. The mind has judgments about how we feel, but the feelings don't come from it. If you move a person successfully into feeling their emotions, they're already in altered state. And go from there. This is what Jimmy's doing with ideomotor. You're bypassing critical mind and moving into memory or feelings or emotions, right? Or maybe even something deeper. Already did that, didn't I? Pretty good. During the induction. Oh, I want to do one with everyone. How about that? Yeah. You like that? I intended to do it up front, but I told the funny Michael stories. Yeah, this is just brief, but it's something that I use up front in the beginning of most of my inductions, especially for past life and LBL. So just put your feet on the floor, let your eyes close. And take a couple of breaths. And now take a moment to observe your thoughts. Just notice what it is that your mind is saying to you. And Rita, what do you hear it saying? It's empty. Great. And so this is something that often happens. Usually one of three things happen. An empty, quiet mind is a big surprise for many people once they become the objective observer of their mind. And Meng, what do you hear your mind saying? Nothing. Nothing. Great. Claudia?
Treasures.
Treasures. Yeah. Jenny? Free. Elizabeth?
Nothing.
Nothing. That's when you're glad to hear nothing, right? Elizabeth?
Just keep getting this. I'm feeling so excited to be here, but
Yeah.
I'm already in that feeling place.
Okay, I'm so excited to be here. Great. So just feel your feet on the floor, let your eyes open again. Back to the room. What a great group. They're already into between afterlife somewhere. So there's usually one of three things that happens. The mind has a concern. What's the schedule? What time is lunch? How many stories is he going to tell? I need to go to the bathroom. He's noticing the environment. I'm uncomfortable in this chair. Something like that. Some concern. Not a problem unless we don't know that it's a concern. So I asked for feedback here. It's also a kind of disguised depth level test. No induction, but they're turning inward. And the most magical thing about this, and I think I got it from Thich Nhat Hanh. No. Tolle. Eckhart Tolle. Right? Observe your mind. That's the state we want them to be in for this journey. And it's that simple. Step out of your mind and observe it. I didn't have to count and do all this other stuff. So, the three things. It has a concern, it's quiet, or it's helping them, it's assisting them, it's saying, relax, let go, you can do this. Okay. Yes?
I have a confession.
Microphone.
I have a confession to make. Before it went to free, it said it's okay. First I had to go through it's okay. So in response to you saying I had to go through it's okay.
And I love it when I hear the client tell me it's saying it's okay. Because I know they're letting go. Right? When they say, I hear that lawyer in the room next to you talking to his client, then I have a concern. Right? And then we need to deal with it. But again, it's only a problem if you don't know. So, has everyone here been trained in parts therapy? Ego state, parts therapy? No?
No.
Most people, I think. I'll show you an adaptation of parts therapy. Parts therapy is an inner conflict resolution. It's in the state of being the objective observer. You can interact with, carry on a dialogue with different parts or aspects of yourself as the objective observer. So I use it for smoking cessation, weight loss. They can talk with the one who overeats or smokes. You know, so you can use it for habits too. But it can be used in many, many ways. The body wisdom process I talked about that I've developed is an extension of parts therapy where you can dialogue with a part of the body and ask the heart, the liver, or the source of the trouble what the message is from the body. Right? You can do the same thing with the conscious interference, with the overactive or locked down mind. And so for this demonstration, I thought I would ask Jerry to come up. Because Jerry, because I heard various rumors that Jerry had some challenge with a very active and engaged conscious mind.
I also had trouble doing this.
Good. So, is that okay with you? Yeah. Here you are, all right.
No, it's okay.
I don't know if I'm making friends or not. Used to like, yeah. So tell me a little bit about what happens for you when you attempt to go into a deeper state or expanded state.
start worrying that I'm not going to, and then I'm going to feel bad for you because I'm letting you down as a therapist.
Okay, yeah. So we could go so many places with that, right? But that wouldn't really be fair to Jerry in front of everybody, I don't think. But it's really a good understanding for me to have about this, right? So when we're worrying, I think it was said earlier, worry has nothing to do with what's happening here now. It's always about the past or it's about the future. And so he's a bit in the future, right? I'm worrying this isn't going to work, Paul's going to be disappointed, this sort of thing. He's going down that path. It's really a very common and highly effective form of self-hypnosis, right? He's hypnotizing himself that it's not going to work. Not so intentionally, but very effectively. Yeah. So I think, I chose Jerry. I thought about this last night. He didn't know, but I thought, because I'd heard him talk about his frustration with this. So I don't know how we'll do, and I'm not going to try to conduct a regression session or something. But if Jerry could get a bit of freedom from that mind that tends to worry or engage, that mind that is so helpful for him in his day-to-day life. He's an amazing financial wizard, I think. The way his mind operates and can look at numbers and figure out and analyze these things, my mind can't do it. I've learned not to even try. So I have someone else do that for me. Maybe he'll do it for me. Do you do taxes?
No. They keep changing the laws. I don't want to law.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you would, just let your eyes close and take a breath or two. Feel your chest rise and fall with each breath. And then just take a moment to observe your thoughts. And just notice what it is that your mind is saying to you. What do you hear it saying? So again, I'm watching breath, expression.
What am I doing up here?
Yeah, okay. So it's wondering what you're doing up here. Yeah, good. And then bring your attention to the center of your chest, your heart center. And breathe and feel into that heart. And what do you feel?
Relaxation.
Yeah. Now do you see? All right? Okay, I feel relaxation. And again, just observe your mind and notice what it's saying to you and what do you hear it saying?
I just got it. It's okay.
It's okay. We shifted, right? It's okay. Good. So thank your mind. You don't have to do it out loud, but thank your mind for being ever vigilant, for keeping you safe, for working so well. Because it's done an amazing job of that for a long, long time. And as you do that, how does it respond?
A sense of peace.
Sense of peace, yeah. So I think it's so essential when we talk with mind to not make an enemy of it. We don't want to make it go away or shut up or get out. And I know in working with my own rather vigilant mind that when I thanked it for always trying to figure things out and fix things and make things right, that it really appreciated being thanked. It just needed some acknowledgement. And then I could physically, inside my brain, feel it start to relax. Right? Even during my first regression, during childhood, I'm like, well, let's see if I can remember my birthday. But when I went back to childhood, teething on something, and I had this very visceral memory, that's when I found or felt mental mind go, oh, okay, I don't have to try to do this. And that's what we want, right? So ask that mind that serves you so well if it would be willing to just release its grip a bit so that you can make this journey. and thank it for its willingness. And then bring your attention to the center of your chest. That heart center, the doorway to your inner world. And breathe and feel into that heart. And go into that heart. And as you do that, you'll find there are some feelings, some emotions that bubble up to the surface. And what do you feel?
Peace.
Peace. So much softer face, right? Forehead, more even breath, peace. And maybe, was that little question mark, right? So we know mind is still a bit engaged, it's still observing, which is fine. We're establishing trust, aren't we? He's establishing trust within himself and here. Yeah. So again, thank that mind and know that if you find that you're wanting to make a journey, do a regression, experience some healing for yourself, that you'll find it easier, that mind will find it easier to observe and record what happens rather than conducting it or doing it for you. How would that be? Good. Then just take a breath again, feel the chair beneath you, your feet on the floor. And when you're ready, you can let your eyes come open again. Grounding. Yeah. Thank you. It's a relief, isn't it, to observe it and have it back off some?
Sure.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It takes bravery to come up there and do that. So Pete did a version of this morning, and it's so interesting. You know, you develop a technique that works, and you use it and teach it, and then you run into trouble with it sometimes, right? So, yeah, how are we doing? Okay. It's a really great technique. I use it very often, but you're going to have to modify it. You can't just use it on every person, right? So, talking to the person about this model of analytical mind stepping back, revealing subconscious mind and soul mind in the beginning of the process. Then sometimes as we begin the induction, we run into challenges. And you have to talk with the mental mind that's wanting to keep them safe or figure it out or do it for them, and ask that mental mind to step back, like I did with Jerry. But you can use another metaphor or make up your own, really. But ask the mental mind. One of the things we learned about analytical mind, the difference between analytical mind and subconscious mind. Subconscious mind multitasks, right? It's doing all kinds of things. Memory, feelings, bodily function. That's sort of the female part of us, multitasking. And you have mental mind, which is the guy, one thing at a time. That's all it can do. But knowing that's really helpful in our field. Give it something to do. It's not good at being quiet. It's not good at being neutral. It's generating thoughts, worries, stuff. So give it a job. Ask your mental mind if it would be willing to take a seat over there in the other chair by my desk, where I was sitting before, to observe and record the session for you. So that when we're finished, it can help you sort through it all, make sense of it. Because it often, during the LBL, tries to make sense, right? I mean, I feel one of our jobs is not to analyze the person's session when it's done, but to help them connect the dots. I'll review the highlights, the bullet points, if you will. So we ask their mind to be engaged in doing that during the session. So it has a thing to do. It's a dissociative technique. You have the mind step away from it. And so I had someone in the chair, and I was accustomed to doing that. She said, "It's not going." Ask it why. Right? We go to parts therapy. Ask the mind. I don't say, "Why won't it?" Because now I've engaged the mind. Ask your mind why it won't. It's very different. If you're not familiar with parts therapy, learn that kind of verbiage. It's too far away. Okay. Well, ask if it would be willing to sit on your shoulder. Oh yeah, it's fine with that. That's their metaphor, not mine. I'll always use theirs. Right? But this dissociative technique, have it move away from them, even if it's just on the shoulder, then it's not operating things, and give it the job. Observe, record, help when we're finished. But don't think that just because you've done this successfully at the beginning or during the induction, that it won't occasionally get up out of the chair and come over and try to help. Because it absolutely will, right? So, and you'll feel it. That's something you need to learn to recognize. Suddenly their words change. I'm not sure, I don't know, I don't understand. They're holding their breath, their forehead's crinkling. You know, I missed it, I think. And I was so intent on reading the manual and trying to do everything correctly. I was missing all these cues from the client. It's really liberating the day that you get, or the days or weeks or months or years that you get it in you pretty much what it is and are able to be flexible with it and really be completely engaged with your client and sense what's happening. I'll ask, but I'm not sure. I notice something's happening here. The session's slowed down. Right? The words have changed. The energy shifts in the room. And they'll usually tell you. Make them aware of it and then help you. Okay. So far we were talking about mostly during the induction, but sometimes during the regression. This is more during the regression itself. You have mental mind. Before I go on to any questions so far? I'm talking and not giving you a chance. Anybody have something, a technique or a method that they use around this that you'd like to share with us? Everybody awake? Okay. Savarna had her hand up.
It's not my technique, but it's something that came up in the last interview I did for our journal with Nancy, who's a longtime T&I person, who had an LBL from Michael. And she said he was so absolutely diligent about certain fact-checking that if she or another client would say something that didn't correspond with what he believed was true or really connected, he would challenge in a persistent but loving way, but challenge and lead them to this place of I don't know. And this is so new for me. But what she explained is that leading someone to that place of I don't know often, and the way he worked or the way she took this on, would sometimes drop them to a deeper place. It like freaked the mind, like, okay, I don't know, my mind doesn't know, boom. So that was a technique that he went for.
Isn't that brilliant? Really brilliant. Yeah. And sometimes it's that scary place you need to go to succeed. Thank you.
I have sort of...
So, just one second. So you'll hear, I don't know. And that's when I say, because the mind's trying to get it, and again, it's beyond its capacity. That's right, I don't know, and you don't know, but your soul knows. It's a redirect, right back to the soul. Right? They've come up, they're searching, they're trying to, no, I don't know. You don't know. Your soul knows. And this is one of the challenges of these sessions, I think, is for the person to shift their consciousness enough, to change their vibration, their frequency enough that they can get these messages from soul, from loved ones, from guides. Right? I talk about traveling in uncharted territory, right? The truth is, the first part of the session, the first part of the session, we're teaching them how to navigate. this other realm, or these other realms, really. Jen?
Well, it's making me rethink something. I'm not sure. So I've been calling this phenomena like a gatekeeper, and I've asked what it wants, and sometimes it wants to. I say, for example, I gave an example of an earlier client who wanted it to go on holiday, so we sent it on holiday. But I'm actually rethinking this, because the thinking mind might want to be thinking this, serving a purpose of thinking. So is it an injustice to that part? It seems to cause relief, and I think the overall desired effect is to cause relief. So if sending it on a holiday works, that's fine too.
I think you answered your own question. I think it's a brilliant tool or technique, and it will work for many and it won't work for some. I don't think it's a disservice at all. The disservice would be forcing that if it won't go.
Oh.
And so you attempt it, and it won't, find out why, and find an alternative. Like, no, that chair's too far away, I need to be on the shoulder. Right? Or some minds won't let go. Well, find out why. You know, there may be other work that needs to be done. No, I think that's brilliant. Yes?
So I had a client once with a very active mind who was telling me that the counting wasn't working. And what I said to this person was that the counting is working and your subconscious is responding, and you just need to allow that to happen. And then the session just opened up from there.
You must have had a really good instructor.
He was all right.
Brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't teach him that. He came, and you know, you learned a lot in class, right? But didn't you already learn more in the chair? I mean, that's where this comes from. It's not from a book.
You were my teacher too. and are my teacher.
I mean, if you train with me, you know this one, but you run into something. At first, I think I was trying to push them through. I was like, no, we have to get to those 2 or 3 childhood memories. We have to get to past life. You got to give yourself a break and give your client a break. And sometimes when they're struggling, just stop and pause. I'll even bring them out if I have to and go back in. You know, if you come out of hypnosis and you go back in again, you go deeper. Right? It's much easier than we call them hammer sessions. Right? So, and what's holding you back? What's getting in the way for you? Well, it's the noise outside. I'm afraid what I'll find out. My mind won't let go. I need to go to the bathroom. This chair is uncomfortable. I mean, ask. Don't just keep pushing. Right? What's holding you back? And sometimes it's a metaphor, right? There's a monster there, or there's an ancestor there. Not that they're being held back. Sometimes they're trying to conform to your methodology. They're trying to follow your instructions and go to a certain place. And they say, well, there's been this blue angel there for about 10 minutes, you know, but you're talking about childhood. Oh, nothing's holding them back. The methodology or me is holding them back. Okay, so this is your session. Let's do what's coming for you. And then we go on. Yes?
I was just going to say that one of the things I was going to ask before was, when we're doing this, sometimes you said pace slows or vague and stuck, which is sort of what you're talking about there. Mm-hmm. I was just wondering about how to know when it is that we're out of alignment, like just what you said then. And one of the things I do with the client early in the piece is to say, if you get out of alignment with me, it's important that I stay in alignment with you. So if you do get out of alignment at any time and you're thinking, like just what you explained then, is to please let me know. I said, it's fine doing it, but if I don't know, we need to be in alignment together and I need to be able to pace you. So I actually ask them to do that.
It's a really good point. Yeah, I do this in the pre-talk. I say, I want you to be your own advocate. Tell me what you need during the session. I'm pretty sensitive. But if I'm saying go here and you're there, just let me know. I'll always work with what's coming up for you. If I'm ahead of you and you need more time someplace, tell me that too, right? If you're already, sometimes we know we're saying childhood, they're in past life. I love those. Right? No, you have to do your birthday party. So I want them to have permission. I want them to be responsible for telling me. Right? I don't want to have to try to figure it all out. Yeah, thanks for making it. Therapeutic confrontation. Oh, so I had the advantage of getting killed, right? I had that lightning thing that happened, and I went to the void. You'll hear people talk about this place, and they'll describe it as best they can. It's dark, I'm floating. But again, the void was absolute nothingness. I've never experienced nothingness except in that dead time. It's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing, it's an absence of all things, which I think as long as we're living and breathing, we have difficulty experiencing. And so I've used that, knowing of that place from the for the person who says to me in that poignant moment, and they respond to my question, and what are you experiencing now, what's happening now? And they say, nothing. Because I know it's impossible for them to be experiencing nothing. If you're living and breathing, something's happening. So what does the client saying to you that nothing is happening, what are they really telling you? I think 90% of the time, if it's early on, they're telling you, I'm not seeing anything. I'm non-visual. I expect the movie and there's no movie, so in their mind, nothing is happening. A client taught me this one. I regressed him. What's happening? Nothing. Okay. As long as you're alive, living and breathing, something happening. What are you experiencing? Well, so he wasn't visual. He wasn't seeing the past life movie. Well, my neck hurts. Oh, is that nothing? I didn't say that to him. It's New York, but I don't always talk that way to everybody. My neck hurts. Yeah. Did it hurt before we started? No. But it's really just distracting me. I can't relax because I'm saying relax deeper, deeper. I can't relax. It hurts so much. Did it hurt before we started? No. Well, what's it feel like? One of the best questions, feeling questions you can ask is, where in your body do you feel it? You already identified it. What's it feel like? Well, it really feels like someone has their hands around my throat and they have me down on the ground. He's come out from under a bridge. He's a homeless person. And he's choking me. I'm not going to make it. I'm above my body. That was nothing. Right? How many times did you have that? So he expects this. He's experiencing this. But it's not what he's supposed to experience, so his experience is not. So they're usually either telling us they're non-visual or something other than what they expected to have happen is happening. Books are very vivid. Michael had a certain way of writing that was so engaging, so good. You go on a journey as you read the words, right? It's so subtle for some people, right? There's this kind of in-between place where they're getting, in the beginning, they're getting glimpses and senses of things, but they're not used to trusting that finer sense. They're not used to journeying in this less tangible world, right? It's not powerful experience that someone might have by a drug-induced journey. And the mental mind is still trying to figure out how to process this information. I mean, people describe temples and stuff in spirit. I don't think there's temples in spirit. They're taking an indescribable experience and doing their best with the limited language from material earth plane words to describe something to us. But if you hear this nothing, don't be afraid of it. Challenge it and find out what they really are experiencing. Okay? Yes?
I have a friend who I hypnotized, and she's an artist, and so she's always very visual in her physical life.
Mm-hmm.
But when she goes under hypnosis, she sees nothing. It is total black for her. She never gets images. And what we worked out, though, was with my language, if I would just say, well, what do you know? Getting her into the soul thing, right? She would describe a room in perfect detail, colors of curtains and doors and everything like that, but it was never that she saw it. So sometimes I think we just have to watch our language.
Absolutely.
When we do.
Absolutely. And see, I have the advantage although I perceived it as a disadvantage of being non-visual, right? So it's easier for me to relate to someone that isn't. I mean, easiest is visual kinesthetic, right? Those, I love when I get one of those in my chair, but not everybody is. And so you're so right. We have to use their language. Yeah.
Paul?
Yes.
I've developed a technique that I use before the session where I
would
check
you
to
share
see
that?
how their mind works. And that's been very useful. Then I know what terms to use when they get stuck and I have to ask them things.
You had a specific technique you talked about yesterday around this.
That was something else.
Was it?
Yeah. This one is something I do during the intake.
Not the fruit or the vegetable?
Oh, the vegetable.
Yeah,
yes.
I think this is brilliant. Would you be willing to share it?
Yes. Do you want me to do that now?
Just, if you could just
Okay.
sort of
I have a series
encapsulate
of
it.
5 questions that I ask them to begin with. I ask them, first of all, to close their eyes and then get an idea in their head of a vegetable. And that is testing, are they visual? Or do they smell it? I ask them actually to take a bite of it. Do they taste it? Do they feel it? I go on to furniture. If it's a chair or a couch, I ask them to sit in it. I ask them to feel the surface. Are they kinesthetic? Do they sense? What do they know about the furniture? Then I ask them to go to their safe place, wherever that may be, and describe it to me. And the way they describe it gives me lots of data about how they think. Then I ask a person, living or dead, that they know or don't know, to just walk into their mind. And that gives me information about where they're at with this session. For example, if they have a love interest that they're absolutely obsessed with, and that's who walks in their mind, I know that they may need some work before we go on with the regression.
Yeah. And how do they experience that loved one coming in? Do they feel their energy? Do they see the person? Do they hear them talking to them? This is all basic hypnosis technique that we need to employ up front in the session. And so brilliant to do that in the intake, I think. Yes, Dorothea.
A very quick technique is just to ask for a pleasant memory and how they observe this memory coming into them. So, are they getting pictures, or do they get feelings, sensations, or just by knowing what happened then?
Yeah.
I do this regularly in the beginning talk.
Yeah. And we use that language for them. Yeah. Yes.
Paul, just as a person who has a very hard time with all of the modalities except just a knowing, it is so frustrating for your client for you to say, what do you see, what do you feel, and continue that when all I want to do is jump out of the chair and say, nothing, darn it, nothing. And then you find that your mind comes in and it starts creating all of this stuff to make them feel good, because I'm like you, I don't want them to fail in their session, therefore I don't participate. So it's so much easier if you just get a knowing. And what do you know?
Yes. Yeah. And that's the place that's hard for a first-time regression client to trust. Right. My very first past life regression, that's how it came, as a knowing. No movie. And I would get a glimpse of an image, and it would fade. And so then the mind, right? And so it took some time, it took some practice. And that's again why the first session is so important, I believe, is that they're practicing this learning to navigate. Yes?
I just wanted to add something, because I do that for all my clients, wherever we're going. But what I found for some people is they're kind of anxious or nervous about coming out with the right memory.
Yeah.
And so I found sometimes just to make it smoother in the beginning, I'll say, well, we all got up somewhere this morning and we slept somewhere. So we have a bedroom or a bed. And just this is started with me just giving an example of how we remember something. I asked them to think about that for a moment, maybe with their eyes closed, and then explain to me what they feel there. So some of them I might say, like for myself, I have to look way back in my mind, and I can tell you about my bedroom. So they all have a way of telling me about their bedroom. And so it could be they see it, and some people it's like they're just sort of remembering it.
Yeah.
But as they get into it, all of a sudden they get more and more information. And I find that really useful to anchor in them that they can do this. Because they feel they're not hypnotized yet. They're just using these senses.
Yes.
And they all have a bed. So you don't have to look for it.
Great.
Ich hatte auch einen Analytiker.
Yes.
Und zwar, der hatte 4 Sitzungen und die 3 Sitzungen waren schrecklich. Er sagte immer, das habe ich mir ausgedacht. Das ist nicht wahr.
So she had a very analytical client, and in 3 sessions he always would say afterwards, I only made this up.
Genau. Und dann...
Don't you love it?
Ja, genau. Und dann habe ich zu ihm immer gesagt, das wissen wir schon. Und ich möchte wissen, was nicht wahr ist. Wieso sagen Sie, das stimmt nicht? Das habe ich mir ausgedacht.
I told him, yes, I already know that you think you make that up, but I want to know, and I just want to know why you are saying I made this up.
Und die 4. Sitzung war erfolgreich, weil ich ihm gesagt habe, das ist die allerletzte Sitzung, die wir jetzt machen, und Sie kommen ein paar Monate später wieder, üben zu Hause weiter, und erst sagen Sie mir, was kommt, und dann ruhig bestätigen, ich habe mir das ausgedacht.
So in the 4th session, Ivona said, so this is our last session. Afterwards you practice at home for a few months before you come back. And then you, before you say, I made this up, you first tell me what you experienced, and then you later on tell me that. So that was very successful.
Die ganze Sitzung war die Hälfte Zeit, ich habe mir das ausgedacht. Aber er hat immer gesagt, was er sich ausgedacht hat.
So before he said, in this session, and also took half the time he would continue saying that, but before he would tell Ivona what he made up, so it was very successful.
Yeah, great, brilliant. Yeah.
Und noch eine kurze Sache wollte ich sagen, ich liebe, wenn die Klienten auf die Toilette gehen.
One more thing she wanted to say, I love it when the clients want to go to the bathroom.
Weil die kriegen eine Induktion ganz am Anfang. Wenn du auf die Toilette gehst und zurückkommst, gehst du in eine noch tiefere Trance.
Before, as a pre-suggestion, I always say, whenever you go to the bathroom, afterwards you go in an even deeper trance.
Und es ist tatsächlich so, dass sie dann bei einem Nachgespräch sagen, das hätte ich aber nicht gedacht, ich war so tief in Trance nach der Toilette.
And it always works, and in the post talk they always say, oh, I didn't believe it, but it worked really. So.
We had a funny session like that many of you have heard, I suppose.
Oh, yes.
The therapist wasn't as careful as she needed to be about her words, and when her client in the middle of the LBL had to go to the bathroom, and he sat down in the bathroom, which was the suggestion she used, he went deeper. And he was in there for 20 minutes or a half hour doing his communication with his guide. Was he? In the womb. Did you have something you wanted to say? I see you holding the microphone there.
Not about that.
Something else? Okay.
The question whether I imagine it or not, this is number one question, because
even as experienced travelers, we always have this question, is it really happened? It's always, so we are okay with the clients to do the same. So what I do with my clients, I ask them to have some exercise, and we do it right at the pre-talk. So I want them to imagine the mirror, and let's look at the mirror. So let's look at the mirror. Close your eyes right now. Just close your eyes. All of us. And imagine that you look at the mirror. So you see yourself in the way how you are right now. And now, let's change something. So change your hairdo. Change the color of your hair. Make it short, long, curly, whatever you please. You're doing it. Or no hair. Or mohawk hairstyle. Whatever you want, you are doing it. All right, so now let's put the hat. Any hat you would like. The huge brim hat, the Napoleon hat, the hat of the biker, anything, because you are doing it. And now take this hat away and put the biking hat. Make sure that the horns are intact. 2 horns? Yes. And now open your eyes. You are doing it. You are creating it. You are constructing the energy. So this is your creation. When the memory comes during the LBL, there is nothing you could do. And when you could do nothing, it's not from your mind.
And now you're all ready for the costume party tomorrow. It's one of the big challenges in our work, I think, is you deliver this amazing session, and they've cried, they've had these awakenings, and in the end they say, well, how do I know I wasn't just me? Did you?
The piece I wanted to add about that is that giving them permission for whatever comes forward, because they're expecting the past life that looks like them charging down on a horse. But it may be much more fantastical than that. Things that we in our current human lives would say, that doesn't happen. But for them, that might have been their experience here on Earth or somewhere else. Particularly important, again, with those that are pregnant. Because they'll say right off the bat, that can't happen on Earth.
And the mind is just, can't stretch that far.
And goes, okay, I'm making it. Regardless of how deep they are.
Yeah. And there are things the mind can't fully comprehend. I had to learn that. I tell the client that too. And this is one reason why the conscious mind feels a need to cast doubt on what just happened. It's a safeguard, because it's stretched beyond its limits. And so I used to try to convince them and feel like disappointed that they didn't trust what happened. But I stopped trying to convince them. And I just reassure them, that's right, I know your mind is having some difficulty dealing with this. And that's natural, because it's beyond its ability to fully understand. And I also, I'll get you just one second. I also talked to them about the 3 criteria that I use to help them gauge the validity of their memories, of their experience, right? One is the emotional charge. If it's devoid of emotion, if it's just a fantasy, you don't have the crying, the laughing, the heat, the fear, all the emotions they experience, right? It's empty of that. So this is one way to gauge it. The other is, if you're going to come here and do 2 sessions with me, travel a distance and pay this money, and just tell me some fantasy, why that particular fantasy? Right? Why are you telling me that story? And most often, the stories you hear are not things that would want to know, or it's not wishful thinking, right? And the third thing, and this is what Anne's looking at, well, what's the outcome? I mean, my first past life regressions were accidental. I was working in a medical office trying to do pain management. And I had people spontaneously regress to past life. I didn't know if they had a psychotic break, if they were fantasizing. If I was out of my, and I certainly didn't know how to facilitate it. But by just telling the story, that internalized, unexpressed energy was externalized, expressed, and the pain was gone. So I said to myself, I'm not a researcher. I'm a therapist. If that was a fantasy, a story, I don't care. That pain's gone. That's what's important. After a while, I said, I got to learn how to do this and do it more intentionally. Right? But the proof's in the pudding. What's the end result of it? And that takes the pressure off. Is it real? Sophia?
Do you hear me? Yeah. I let them practice at home several weeks ago before the LBL to observe their intuitive perception. And I write them that our brain can only process 12 bits per second, and our intuition 1 million per second.
Is that true?
Yes.
Can you say it again?
Yeah. Science found out, the science of intuition, which is developing right now very quickly, found it out that the brain is processing 12 bits per second, and our intuition 1 million per second. And I tell the clients, you will perceive by your intuition in the session. You will perceive other realities than you are used to in this physical life. So they practice that to observe how they perceive differently.
Really, yeah, makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me too in terms of the fact that often they leave the office, even with debrief, unprocessed in many ways. That which has happened in the past life or the LBL, I know for me personally, I understood the main points for my LBL, but it wasn't until 9 months, 10 months later that I was actually able to move that into some action in my life. It took real time for that big thing to be able to be expressed and lived. I have one more demonstration I want to do, and I think we have 5 minutes. Everybody okay?
Yeah.
So, Mike, thank you for standing up and volunteering for this.
Yeah.
So, we really, really appreciate what you're doing by being here.
Thanks.
And this is my way to thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. A pie would have been fine.
You know, they have these big bowls of whipped cream down there at lunch. I was thinking about one of those. Three Stooges style. Right? Oh, let's see where we are in the slides. Okay, so we're okay. I'm not going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. So, this again is something for you to really watch for with a client, is how their energy and their consciousness moves in their body. One of the very common themes that you'll work with, two of the very common themes that you're going to work with in conducting these LBL sessions, is the closed and shielded protected heart, right? Because there's been some loss, there's been some trauma, there's been some hurt. And out of necessity, we've built a substantial shield and protection around our heart. And if that's closed and shielded and shut down, it's really difficult to go anywhere in one of these sessions. And you're going to have to spend time and energy with the client to help them open that, right? You may or may not get that in your first session, but I know that you need to get it open or you're going to have difficulty. The other thing that you'll run into, because people become, because of grief, right? They've lost someone they love, a child, a parent, a spouse. I mean, I think it's very common in our practices. And as we know from Michael's book, when one leaves one's body, there's often great relief, ecstasy, light, so many positive things, and they'll reach out to a loved one and have difficulty reaching them because of the grief. The pain, the sorrow is so much in the way. They have difficulty making contact. I believe that Michael really experimented with this through LBL. I believe he's doing it from the other side now. How to make contact from that side so that we can meet somewhere in the middle. So one of the things that I want to encourage you to watch for when you're conducting an LBL, especially with someone who's lost a loved one, when we lose someone we love, a part of us goes with them. A part of us longs to be with them. Some of our energy, some of our soul energy can go with them. I've had many cases. I had a very interesting case with twins. They were older, in their 70s. And one was killed in a taxi accident in New York City. And ever since then, the surviving twin had gotten more and more ill, right? A number of various diagnosable illnesses, but just a series of these things. And when she came in to do LBL, realized that she felt it when the sister died before the call came. She knew, right? That's how closely aligned they were. And out of the loyalty and the love, a part of her soul energy went with her sister and was missing. And this is why her energy was so low, and she kept becoming more and more ill. And so in the session we had, and it was difficult for her to bring that part of her back because she felt it was disloyal, right? It was out of loyalty. And so the work that we do in LBL was for the sister that had gone to say to her, no, please, I want you to live your life. I feel your love, but I want you to live. I can't now. I completed what I needed to do, but I want you to live. And so with that, she was able to retrieve it, right? So there's a movement towards death. That doesn't mean the person wants to commit suicide or is actively trying to die, but there's something in us that longs to be there. And you'll hear people come and tell you, I want to go home, right? I want to visit home, and they do it through LBL. And they have difficulty because LBL is really about living here, not about escaping this and going there, right? So anyway, okay, so just let your eyes close and bring your attention to your breath, if you would. And take those longer, deeper breaths. And now take a moment to observe your thoughts. Just notice what it is that your mind is saying to you. And what do you hear it saying?
It's nervous that I'm going to mess this up for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, right. So thank it for trying to do it right, and let it know that there's no way to do it wrong. This is your session for you, and it doesn't have to be any particular way. There's no way to do it wrong. And when you tell it that, how does it respond?
I feel a little more relaxed.
Okay. So thank it for being so vigilant, so alert, working so well for you. And let it know that we're going to do something a bit different today, that it can help you, which is really what its intention is, by just releasing its grip a bit. Not entirely even, but just a bit. And ask it if it's willing to do that. And how does it respond?
I would say with a cautious yes.
Yeah, good. So thank it. Understandably cautious. And then what you want to do is you want to place one hand on the center of your chest. This is your heart center. And this is the doorway to your inner world. And you want to breathe and feel into this heart center, inviting it to open. See that nice breath? And as you invite that to open, you'll find that there are some feelings, some emotions that rise up to the surface. And what feelings come up for you? What do you feel?
Still feeling a bit nervous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nervous. So I mirror the feeling, nervous. Mm-hmm. And what is it that you're feeling nervous about?
Again, just not having this work out.
Yeah. And how does that feel that if it were to not work out?
Like the gentleman who was here first, I'm worrying that I'm letting you down.
Right. So do you see? Right? I'm worrying. I'm going to let you down. It's not a feeling, is it? This is cognitive activity. We want to get the feeling. So when you think about letting me down, how does that feel?
Well, I feel bad about that.
Yeah. And how's bad feel? Where do you feel bad in your body?
I'm not sure.
Breath stopped? I'm not sure. Yeah. So take a breath. This is the next slide, I think, but we're going to use forehead tap. I'm going to just touch your forehead for a moment. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Feel into your chest. Right here. Breathe, feel. And what do you feel? Mm-hmm. What do you feel?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. You feel me pressing?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Feel your hand there?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Good. So I would shift a little bit here because it's really substantial, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to be brief with it so you know. I'm not going to try to crack it and do a session. But so if that protection that you had there around your heart that keeps you safe from whatever's in there was an object, if it had a size, a shape, a color, a texture, how would it appear? What would it be?
I feel like it's a big, darkly colored wall.
Yes, good. Big, darkly colored wall. It's called objectification, right? We made it into an object. Now he can dialogue with it. We can work with it. I'm not going to go there. It's not fair to him, and it's lunchtime. But this is the process I wanted you to see. Both the forehead tap. It's not comfortable. Some people really wouldn't like it, but it helps short-circuit the brain and then shift. And then this is heart shield that you need to work with. Find, like the parts therapy with the mind, you would dialogue with that protection. Generally, we thank it, and it will soften and find a way in. It's there for a good reason.
Yeah.
We want to explore what that is.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. That's our work. And it may not be past life regression, but it may be exactly what the client needs. Okay? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's in your printout, the slides I didn't show you. There. Thank you so much.